Welcome to Liz McMullen Show. I have a special guest on, Katie Lynch, but what makes her ultra special, other than her amazing CV, is that she was one of my very first guests in the first episode of the Liz McMullen Show, and now I checked before we got in, I have done 175.
That's amazing.
Yes.
It's a lot.
I know, and it's just like, it's mind-boggling, but so Katie is a professor. She writes both paranormal and romance, or the paranormal romance, or like dramatic fiction. So you started your career with Bold Strokes?
That's correct. Yep, I started with Bold Strokes, Running with the Wind, which I published with them as Nell Stark, which is my pseudonym. Yep, there it is. Running with the Wind. That came out in 2007 from Bold Strokes.
Yeah, that was such I really dug Running with the Wind, and I also liked the tie-in in Homecoming.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I've chose myself to write series is because I love reading them so much.
Yeah.
And as a reader, we get so attached to the characters that we don't want to say goodbye to them. Why do you write series?
Well, so I've written one really traditional series, which is the Ever After series, which I wrote with Trinity Tam, and that's the pseudonym of my wife. And so we wrote that series together, and it works kind of like many series work, where the two characters, for us it was two characters, they're going on adventures and there's a large plot arc, but there's also individual sort of episodic kinds of plots that take place in each book. And so that was the more conventional series. But the other books that I've written just sort of tie into each other in more subtle ways. With Running with the Wind and Homecoming, they're shared characters. And the same is true for The Princess Affair and The Princess and the Pre, and those are kind of the latest series that I've been building, where each book has new characters that are the protagonists of that book, but the protagonists of the previous book come in and become secondary characters, and that happened in The Princess and the Pre. And then All In is almost entirely a standalone, except for one moment, one brief sort of subtle moment, where it becomes clear that the poker player in All In has had an encounter with the princess in The Princess Affair. So I just sort of see my world as kind of connected. I like establishing connections. It makes me feel like I'm kind of building a parallel universe almost.
One of the things that I recently went on a research trip, and one of the things that is true with my novels is that the setting is a main character.
Yeah.
So there's that consistency, and in the series that I'm writing that's in the 5 College Consortium, there will be different main characters, but the world building, the people that they're going to be interacting with, these are small business owners, these are students, these are professors, and so of course they're going to bump into each other.
Yes.
But Radcliffe actually does this quite often, and I think it's awesome because you write series, but also some separate series, there can be slight character crossover, and even in standalone. So that's thrilling. It's almost like finding an Easter egg, an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my God, I found a connection to another book. That's so cool. It's like a game for adults.
Yeah, it is fun. It's really fun to see everything is connected and to get the sense that these characters are all part of, something bigger than their own stories.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So I want to spend the rest of our interview. We'll do some questions from your fans, and then I have to say goodbye. It's so sad, so sad. But we only have 30 minutes. Only 30 minutes. So the first question is from Ann Etter. Why switch to your real name, and what inspired Confucius Jane?
Okay, cool. It's a great question. So yeah, I began my publishing career, writing as a published author, as Nell Stark with Bold Strokes Books, and I've published a bunch of books with them, and I love Bold Strokes. And I saw one of the other questions was, am I still going to keep publishing with Bold Strokes as Nell Stark? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I consider Bold Strokes to be not only my publisher, but also, a family, very much a family of choice for me. And everybody who works there is amazing, and my fellow authors are amazing, and so I love being a part of that team. What happened with Confucius Jane was that a few years ago, I received an email just out of the blue, and it happened to be from a literary agent in New York with the Jane Rochosen agency. And she said, this was a really cool story, made me very happy. She said that her daughter, who was, I believe, around 20 at the time, enjoyed my books, my Nell Stark Bold Strokes books. And that she wanted to know if I had representation, if I had an agent, and if I didn't, whether I would be interested in having a conversation about it. Mm-hmm. So I looked her up and checked her out and made sure that, yes, this was legitimate, and it was. And so I arranged a meeting with her and, went up to the office. And when we sat down to talk, she said, look, I know that you're published, I know that you're doing well, but I wonder if you're interested in exploring mainstream options. That's something that I could help you with. She said, I think, this is before we had full marriage equality, but she said, I think the world is changing, and I think the climate is changing, and I think the mainstream industry really needs more of these stories, and I'd like to help you sell one if you want. And so what I did was, I said, yes, I want to try, right? I mean, that was an opportunity that just kind of fell into my lap, and I felt really lucky, and I felt like I needed to give it a shot. So I wrote Confucius Jane on spec, as they say, and wrote it, without any knowledge really about whether there was no contract, there were no parameters, nothing like that, where I was bound into something. It was just, can I write a manuscript that the agent thinks is suitable for a mainstream publisher? Mm-hmm. And I worked on that manuscript with the agent and with people that she had to sort of read the book and offer feedback. And then when she thought it was in a good place, she began trying to sell it. And in the course of doing that, I also spoke with Radcliffe, with Len Barreau, who's the president of Bold Strokes Books. And I said, look, I'm exploring this opportunity, but I really want to stay with Bold Strokes as Nell Stark. I just want you to know. And we were able to work that out. And I'm so grateful for that because, again, Bold Strokes means a lot to me. At first, as the agent was trying to sell the manuscript, it was the story you always hear, right? Rejection, rejection, rejection. Some of them are nice rejections, like, oh, this is, a good story, but we just don't think it's a good fit for our house. And some of them were just kind of like dismissive rejections, which frankly stung a bit, but that's okay. It's always good to eat some humble pie. And so finally, to me anyway, after several months of trying, she was able to sell the book to an editor at Tor, which is also Forge, and so Tor is best known for its fantasy, its high fantasy. They published, probably most famously, Robert Jordan, who wrote the Wheel of Time series, and Forge does their women's fiction, their mystery, detective fiction, that kind of stuff, and that's all a subsidiary of Macmillan. And so an editor at Forge picked up the book. Her name's Kristen Sevick. She's fantastic. And then I started working with Kristen on the manuscript. And then, the book came out just this past January 2016. And it's Confucius Jane, and it's available everywhere. And I'm really excited about it. It's been so much fun to write the book and to work on the book, and now to have people reading the book. So
this is something that Sarah Bridget Carey asked. Do you plan to write more books under the name Katie Lynch?
Yes, I do. Yep, I'm going to work on more books as Katie Lynch and more books as Nell Stark.
So I remember, of course I don't remember the title, but I remember that you and Rad were working and have published an anthology with younger writers.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm a terrible host and I didn't write down the name of the book.
No, that's okay. It's called OMG Queer. It came out, I can't remember the exact year now, but it came out several years ago. It was an anthology of short stories, and the idea was to really get some young, talented, queer-identified writers to write, generally fiction about their experiences. Of course, whatever they wanted to write was fine, and I got a lot of submissions and was able to, accept a bunch of really great ones and then work with each writer to edit those stories. The book was great because it showcased young queer voices, and as a professor, I I want those voices to be amplified. I want people to be able to hear those voices. I get to hear them every day, and I want other people to hear them. And so I would love to do something like that again. It was a lot of work. I feel like I haven't had the time to devote to that kind of thing. But if Rad's ever up for it, I have thought about asking her if we can maybe do a sequel.
I love that. And one of the things that I started doing last year is publishing anthologies myself. And one of my goals with each anthology is to publish stories to bring to the fore stories that don't get published very often. My Through the Hourglass is historical lesbian fiction, romance particularly. And there's just not a lot of anthologies out there that focus on that. You'll have erotica, but not romance. So I did that, and right now I am very fortunate that Kate Clinton is going to contribute to my Laughing Out Loud anthology.
Oh, that's great.
I know, that was another one of my career, the angels sing moments.
Yeah.
And so I have that one, and Jan Redman is going to be doing a crime one with me, and Julia Watts is doing Southern voices, because we want to get voices out there that are not the stereotype of what Southern is, and have like some good regional representation, and that's my hope. That's what I think. Anthologies are great because you can do something experimental. You can really, the other thing that I love, and it's about everything that I do, is I love bringing sisters together. I love uplifting people and giving them a voice, whether it's with my shows or with my mentoring or whatever. And that's what's kind of thrilling about anthologies. And one final question that I have for you is, how do you feel about your YA or new adult titles? Do you write titles that are more the general fiction age group, or like what are some of the things that you explore?
Yeah, so I love writing about women in their 20s. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very volatile time for a lot of people. It was for me as well. And I think people start to really define themselves at that point. So kind of, right on the end of college or in college, right on the cusp of graduating. And then what happens after that? How do you start to make your way in the world? Who are you really now that you have kind of cast off a lot of the safety nets of your past? And I think part of the reason why I enjoy writing about women who are that age and exploring their psychologies and exploring their motivations is because that's when I came out. I came out when I was 21, and I think in some ways when you come out, it's a rebirth, right? And,
yes.
And so I think since then I've been really interested in how people change their identities or cement their identities. Unfortunately, I get to work with students who are about that age. Some of them are a little younger because I teach at a community college. But so I'm constantly in the presence of people who are doing exactly that. And so I get to kind of fuse what I see in the classroom and in my office and everything with the ideas in my head.
This has been such a fabulous talk. It's been so rich, and I think that people may not anticipate getting so much. It's such a short fraction of time, but I really felt that we really get into a lot of stuff, and it was exciting to learn what you're up to, Katie Lynch, and also know that you're still going to be Nell Stark.
Yeah, absolutely. And Confucius Jane is it's a work being marketed as women's fiction. It has a strong lesbian romance component to it. It's also got a dash of magical realism, and it's set in New York City, and it's set in the year of the monkey, which is our current Chinese lunar year, which it just happened. So hopefully people will enjoy it, and if you like it, I hope you tell me about it.
Yes. I'll tell you this much. I'm surrounded by her books, and they are engaging. Do not start them late at night. You will not sleep. You will be, you'll crash out on your desk because you just can't put her books down. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Liz.